My name is Ralph Carl Wushke, currently Ecumenical Chaplain at the University of Toronto. I came to UofT first as a student in 2000 when I was working on what's called a Master of Sacred Theology, THM, at Emmanuel College. The focus of my study was trying to connect queer theory with sexuality ethics, so ultimately to think about queer theological ethics. And I worked on that degree for 4 years on a half-time basis. As soon as I completed the degree, or within a few months of graduating in May of 2004, I was invited to become the Ecumenical Chaplain at the University of Toronto. And shortly after I started working as a chaplain, I thought, we could really use a queer, faith-based program at UofT. And the idea, it was partly connected to my studies, of course, in queer theory and queer theology, but also to my life story as a gay pastor and Christian and a person living with HIV/AIDS. So all of these things were connected. So I knew several theological students and other chaplains who were LGBTQ identified at the time, invited them to come together in early January of 2005 and see if there was some merit to this idea. We quickly drafted up some goals for what we called immediately the Queer and Religion program. We started our first series of 4 events that semester and offered a 4-part QR program in the winter semester of 2005. The rest is history. In my view, 2 of the most important meetings we ever had under the QR umbrella took place at the Future Cafe and Bakery. A number of students that I'd met, and these 2 events happened about 5 or 6 years apart from each other, where I'd met a number of queer students of faith individually who I thought had a lot in common with each other, and I thought it would be a safer space to meet off campus than on campus. So the Future Cafe was chosen, and both times those one-off meetings spawned the development of a group, a QR group that then had a life for the next 3 to 4 or 5 years. Quite historic events. I think I'm not actually usually that self-reflective about my role. So as a chaplain, I was sort of on kind of almost automated pastoral pilot. We offer a number of different programs. So I'm always thinking about how to connect people creatively and in life-giving ways to these programs. So that's really a chaplain's role, is to be, I think, to use what I would call consecrated imagination, to think about who would benefit by this, who can I connect here, what can I do with what God has given me, this semester. So with the 2 Future Cafe Bakery events, it was so lovely because the first one must have been around 2006 or 7. And that fall, I met 4 or 5 gay Roman Catholics in different disciplines on campus. And so I just had this vision for what would happen if they all met. And so I emailed each one of them individually, asking them, if they would like to meet other people who seemed to have stories that were in common with them. Once I got permission from all of them to bring them together, I guess I sent an email using an undisclosed recipients list. And sure enough, in the event, 5 or 6 people showed up and magic happened. I mean, people were exchanging cell phone numbers before the evening was over. And then most of those people then not only continued to meet as QR for the next 5 years, but also became the leadership core, really, of the Queer and Religion program for the next 5 years. Like, they took on leadership. They made the program what they wanted it to be and what they felt they needed out of it. Within a few weeks, I was able to send them emails using disclosed recipients lists. So it was a very step-by-step intentional process, but also required some imagination at the beginning to say, how could we make this work? I think for me, it really was just a combination of intuition and professionalism. Being a pastor involves many things, including being a friend, being a confidant, being a bearer of the gospel, an evangelist at some level, but also a dreamer, a little bit of prophet, a little bit of priest. So I think, when the Ecumenical Chaplaincy hired me, that's what they got. And so I just try to use the resources that I have, which include being an extremely extroverted personality who loves connecting people together. I mean, I always say my job in life is to bring good people together. So I think that particular trait in my personality of wanting to connect people for the joy of seeing what will happen when people come together actually energizes me. And after it worked the first time, then I had no trouble rolling it out the second time 5 or 6 years later, where it worked again. So my role has changed so much in the chaplaincy in the last 10 years. The first 3 or 4 years, I not only was creating and imagining the programs, I was delivering them. There were no interns. Like if I didn't show up, the program didn't happen. So now my role has shifted to sort of coaching and supporting and backstopping interns. And that's been wonderful because the interns have delivered programs both content-wise and media-wise that I would have never imagined or never been able to conceive of myself, because they bring skill sets that are totally different and beyond my skill set. When I think of some of the students and how they arrived at QR, the fear or anger or confusion, and how they left QR, and how they are today as professors or leaders in their own fields, fully, credentialed professionals, it really feels like it was holy work, sacred work. Feels like a great, for lack of a better word, legacy.